FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz. Today is May 15th, 2017. It's Monday. Gordon Long is with us. We're talking about student loans. If you've gone to college or you've sent children to college or your grandchildren, you know what's going on with tuition, with student loans. It's insane. It's a bubble. It's going to burst. But who's going to get stuck with the tab? Private companies are still cashing in on this bonanza. They're going to keep cashing in until there is no more bonanza. And Gordon, we've been talking about this for years. Welcome back. But the chickens are coming home to roost, aren't they?
At a phenomenal rate. And I was listening to your comments there, Kerry. I think it's a racket.
Yeah.
This whole student, and I don't like to use that word. And when I say racket, I'm not saying anything illegal, but certainly immoral of what's been going on with it. We've all known, that it's $1.4 trillion. I mean, but it's the rate at which it's grown since the 2008, 2007-8 financial crisis. And colleges didn't suddenly get more expensive, and tuition didn't suddenly get more. Costs didn't get suddenly more expensive, but they suddenly shot up. And we've had $1 trillion more in the since 2010 that we ever had of that 1.4 trillion that we've had before. So what happened? What changed in that whole process? And we got inside it and started looking at it. And we were, the more we skinned it, Kerry, and we thought we understood it, the more stunned we were on how much money is being taken out. That's the point I'm getting to. There's a $140 billion industry living off that $1.4 trillion. They're taking it out in the way of commissions, fees, interest on the money, and the number of companies, Kerry, I don't know if you've skinned it, that are now involved in it that I've never heard of before, and they're large companies, and they're kind of below the radar screen. And these, again, are all the lenders, the originators, the service providers that all go to support this infrastructure.
Yeah. Well,
and who's paying for it? Who's paying for it?
Yeah,
we know the students are paying for it and their parents, and we all say, but at the end of the day, when this thing collapses, all these players that I just mentioned, I could go through them, don't lose because it's all guaranteed by the government, because these are all fully guaranteed loans. They take no risk. Kerry, if you're a lender, isn't your dream to lend money where there's no risk?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, there's always some element of risk, but no, the way they've structured this industry, you lend money through the asset-backed security pools and structures, but it's all guaranteed by the government. Zero risk. So therefore, you're going to lend all the money you can possibly lend, even if a kid shouldn't go to college, no matter what, just as long as he's got a student card. I don't care if he's studying basket weaving or engineering, give him as much money as he wants, and that's what we do. And not only is it guaranteed from the government, just in case, they also made sure that these are non-recourse loans so that the student himself can't get out from under
they're non-dischargeable. They're non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. And I remember when the bankruptcy code was revised in the mid, part of the last decade. And it was basically the motivation of amending the bankruptcy law was that too many people were taking advantage of, and too many of you were abusing the bankruptcy laws. There was never any discussion about making private student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. And it just got added in the last second. And I would tell you, Gordon, that was the entire purpose of this exercise, was to basically make student loans non-dischargeable, private student loans by private banks. They were never dischargeable since the 70s from public, when there was public guarantees, etc. But for private companies, no, that was never the intent to make them non-dischargeable. They snuck it in, and our kleptocratic system, that's what they did. Amazing. Unbelievable. But they got away with it.
And they got away with it. And then it built on itself. And so we have an industry with that's taxpayer guaranteed and is student loaned, and the students themselves non-recourse, that's risk-free. Have you ever seen a lending industry that's risk-free? So
only when there's guarantees.
We've never seen this.
Yeah.
So they're making money like there's no tomorrow. And when you've got that much money that's available, we know prices go up. And so there's a number of reasons that college costs of our college tuition has went up, but it's just too much. It's too much money chasing too few positions here right now.
Correct.
And so what the biggest issue they have is trying to get more kids into college so that they can lend more money.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. I had a neighbor of mine and this is telling in itself. He has a number of kids going to college. One of his sons was a terrible student. The only hope was that he'd go get a basketball scholarship or something. Yeah. Well, needless to say, one day he comes over, sticks his head over the fence and says, "Hey, I got good news. My son got into college." And I says, "Where'd he get the basketball scholarship?" He said he didn't. I says, "Oh," he said he got an academic scholarship. Okay, he got a grade point average of like 1.2 or like, I mean, it's terrible. I said, I thought he was kidding me. I said, "What?" He says, "No, he got a $15,000 scholarship, academic scholarship per year."
Really?
And I thought, I'm not, what's going on? The bottom line was, at that time, a state college here was $30,000, $32,000. They gave him a $15,000 scholarship, but it was a private college, but their tuition was $45,000. So that was the funny money, Kerry. They say, "Oh, we're giving you $15,000, so you're going to give us $30,000, same as the 32, the same as the college, the state college." But they didn't give him the money, they gave him the credit. So they had just taken their tuition up to $45,000, right?
Yeah.
Making sense here? So it was a marketing game, a lost leader. But the point is that $45,000 and filling these seats for the kind of course he was taking was I won't mention it course, but it was like basically basket weaving. Advanced basket weaving.
Well, maybe remedial basket weaving, I think, for that kid.
Probably remedial. But the point is, by filling these seats, they got money. The college got money from the government. Mm-hmm. So the money flowed into them if they could fill the seats, and then the student loans that went with it. So the college itself was much better off.
Yeah.
So and that's not unique. And then if you go to the Ivy League schools, and you and I were just talking there before, they've got these endowments that are measured in the billions of dollars. Harvard here in Boston is, it's $41, $42 billion. And it's, I don't think the largest, but I did some work, and the average endowment per student that's actually enrolled ranges from 1.4 million to 2.8 million in the Ivy Leagues. If you took 2 million as an average and said they made it 5%, that's $100,000 a year. Harvard wants $63,000 a year now fully loaded to go there. Ivy League schools could give everybody a full scholarship, still have money over to put back in the endowment to do other things, and be better off. But they don't do that. Yes, some money goes to the into scholarships, and the reason they don't do it, 50% of the money is coming from students and 50% from the government. So they just keep on growing these endowments. And when Harvard charges $64,000, I can tell you that college was alluding to my friend. I bet you it isn't $42,000 or $45,000 anymore. It's probably $58 million or $58,000 because they all price to market, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah.
So it's and the bottom line is there's just too much money available, and there's no needs basis on it. When I say needs, like it's disconnected between value and cost. So an engineering degree is just equivalent from a lending standpoint as basket weaving, even though the chances of making enough money to pay it back with a basket weaving course in engineering are completely different. That's not a consideration in the lending process. And that a lending process can't work that way. And it goes back to, again, the old banking problem that we had during the housing, and that is the lender, the originator, sells the loan. So they're disconnected. So they just get out from under it and away it goes. So there's nobody that's on the hook for the original lending decision.
Except the student.
Except the student who's supposed to make good decisions that this degree is going to be the right thing for him to do. But right now it's called, hey, I got to get a degree or I'll never get a job. It's that fundamental. Without a degree, without that piece of paper, there's no chance of employment today. So they've got to get into any kind of college in their mind. So the whole lending standards practice breaks down of educating them on risk acceptance. Like there's a consumer protection here where they need to understand. These are young people making decisions where they don't really understand the consequences of this debt.
They're clueless. What should be required?
Because we've got this thing that you got to have an education. I couldn't agree more that you have to have an education. But the question is what?
Here's the thing.
You go to Europe, Kerry. Vast majority of people do not go to university there. They don't even aspire to it. They go to trade schools. Yeah. They live very, very well because they have a skill. They're apprenticed. It's hard to get into the apprentice courses, but that they graduate. They don't have that kind of debt, or at least the last time I was there, they didn't. I may be changing.
Well, here's the thing: when these kids are taking out these loans, there's no counseling. Now, when elderly people take out a reverse mortgage, and if you're not familiar with what a reverse mortgage is, that is you've got equity in your home. The government will back this reverse mortgage. I think half of them are in default, but in any event, before they can do it because they generate such enormous fees for the lenders, the elderly people, and you got to be at least 65, that's why I say elderly in quotes, have to get a counseling course. They're required to take a counseling course, and that's where everything is spelled out, not given by the lender, but given by some educational nonprofit concern. And there is none of that for kids 17, 18 years old making these borrowing decisions that can affect your entire life. And believe me, like that picture I just sent you, Gordon, the guy's having a drink celebrating because he just finished paying off his student loans. The only thing, he's 70 something. I mean, that's what we're creating, a whole generation of these people. And it's criminal. It really is absolutely criminal.
Yeah, you're right on, Kerry. I use the word immoral. The consumer protectionism is not here, and it's not just the students; it's even their parents that need better education on the ramification, because they're blinded to the fact they have got to get that college no matter what it costs. They've got to get it. They've got to be institutionally certified. And I'm not disagreeing with that, but they really need to understand, as you say, with reverse mortgages, what's going on here, what they're accepting, what are the liabilities, to really make those hard decisions. And maybe they shouldn't take those courses.
Exactly.
And I know we should all take, we should aspire to more education, but there's a lot of people that's not the right kind of training for them.
Exactly.
They're better suited to doing something else, and I'm not. They'll be better off in the long haul for them and their families. So it's a brainwashing procedure.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, we got a guest on, Lou Weiss. He owns a manufacturing company in New Jersey, and he's big on getting kids, coming out of high school to go consider manufacturing. And you know how much a welder makes after a 6-month apprenticeship? Do you know how much they make? About $70,000. Now, how long is it going to take somebody with a degree in puppetry or English literature or art history to make $70,000 a year? They're going to be lucky to get a burger flipping job at Mickey D's here, or
You'll know exactly the issue. And and a lot of you talk to employers today, they will tell you they can't get people.
No,
and yet the students will tell you they can't get jobs. And you say, well, where's the disconnect? Because most of the employers, they need a skill. Whether it's bricklaying, whether it's an electrician, they've served an apprenticeship, they've certified themselves, not through some institution like a university, but through a proper training course.
Right.
But they can't find them because the kids the kids didn't get that kind of training. And meanwhile, so that they graduate, they can't get a job. They're not making enough flipping burgers, and they're just living at their parents' base. So they've got to re-educate themselves, and they got to get into those kind of courses, but they've already got the debt.
Yeah.
So it's a guidance problem. And I think that in our high school, I don't think our guidance counselors, it's like they drank from the Kool-Aid. They went to college, and this is what you should do. Kerry, where it's going to lead to, and I can see it coming very quickly, is the colleges themselves are going to go by the way, slowly but surely. Not necessarily you need a college education. Don't need one. It's going to be learning online instead of going off to. It's going to be, and you're seeing more and more of these colleges where it's it's online certification, which is quasi to how your professional certifications you get right now today, CFAs, et cetera. You graduate, you're working for a company, and then you start your real education in the evenings to get yourself your various professional certification. And I can see, we know that's going on. I mean, and everybody that's listening here knows that, but I think it's going to accelerate at a phenomenal rate because an online degree from a certifiable university compared to one off to normal college today is dramatically different. Well, they're pricing themselves out of the market, my point.
And it's easy to learn online. I did it. This is how I learned how to do internet radio. It was an online course, cost me $800 with a guy named the Podcast Answer Man, Cliff Ravenscraft. And I spent 2 months on it, and I started applying it immediately. There weren't any colleges actually giving these courses at the time, Gordon. So it really became necessary to actually go out there and find it. And look, this is where education is heading. There's no question about it. It's all going online, and perhaps the Harvards and the Yales will monopolize the online because, they might not get 50, 60,000 or 70,000 a year from their students, but they'll be getting hundreds, maybe thousands, tens of thousands more students at their online universities.
Yeah, if you're with you totally there. If they, Kerry, if they could take their brand and increase the volumes through online, they could. They're a cartel now, but just think with the kind of control they would have, and they'd be better off. Even more revenues coming in, and something's going to trigger this, and it'll start. This will start to happen. It's happening slowly, but it's like anything. They've got to be forced to really make that change aggressively. And that usually comes because enrollment starts to fall off. Schools that are going online are much more competitive. But when it turns, it'll turn quickly. And the point then is for all those students that are then sitting on $100,000, $150,000 loans, they're done for life.
Yeah.
Right? They're in a hole they can't get themselves out of, and it's so serious, Kerry, because these are students that got 77 million millennials right now that aren't out there buying houses.
No.
And previous generations, they were buying houses at that point. They can't afford the car. They have cars, but they use Uber. They're in a much bigger way. So it's impacting the cars. You start to go through how they buy in the retail stores. There's not an industry that I'm not on a conference call that there's not a trend. When I really listen to it, it's because this millennial generation, which has arrived, Kerry, between 34 and college, these kids are now 77 million of them. That is now influencing everything. And I think in the next election, you're going to realize how big it's now got. We almost saw it in the last one with Bernie Sanders, how he appealed to the millennials. And as you know, it was a lot more left-leaning. It was a lot more student forgiveness on the loans.
Oh, yeah.
But this shift is happening big times. And so, the government, no doubt, will have to step in and some level of forgiveness. And that's what the students are giving. There will be. That'll have to happen. It's an economical problem is what it is.
There's not even a question, Gordon. It's going to happen.
And so all these lenders are betting on it, Kerry. Yeah. They're risk-free, and they know that they're going to walk away clear on it. So in many ways, what I was shocked is to say student loans industry is something to invest in right now because they're making such great money. But you got to be careful because when it turns, their businesses will go south very quickly. I didn't say lose money, just the volumes will change.
Yeah, the whole metrics of the industry. Exactly. Because like we said, there's people who shouldn't be going to college, just like there are people out there who you shouldn't own a home because it's not for you. But unfortunately, we have these perverse incentives, and that's what's distorting the market. That will always be the case. In any event, Gordon, where do we find you? We want to find out more about this pressing topic.
Well, thanks, Kerry. I have a site now called MATA, MATASII.com, where we actually just focus on all sorts of strategic investment areas that are really focused on, like I've talked about retail in the past. We've talked about automotive in the past. Areas that we think are going through major structural changes, student loans, and therefore, how should you look at them? How should you invest in them? What are the key metrics to start paying attention to. So mattsii.com, join me there anytime.
All right. And questions, comments on this interview, email me, KL@KerryLutz. We'll answer all. And the Twitter feed is @KerryLutz. And Financial Survival Network is the Facebook page. Gordon, it's great catching up with you. This is going to unwind the student loan bubble in the months and probably not too many years ahead. We're hitting the tipping point, so we will follow it closely, just like auto loans, student loans, anything that hits over $1 trillion, you can pretty much say is a bubble, and this one's no different. So let's follow up on this, Gordon, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet, Kerry. Thanks.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.